I'm an alcoholic. My name is Shari Jill.
Shari.
My sobriety date is January the 18th, 2015.
Nice.
My home group is the Life is Good group. We meet every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. at United Methodist Church in Boca Raton. What an honor it has been these last 12 weeks to be up here with all of you.
Nice.
I remember when Cole texted me, I called my sponsor and I was like, oh, Stevie must have given my number to Cole because they're asking me to do a 12-step series. I don't think I'm ready to do a 12-step series. And he said, well, God must think you're ready. I said, okay then. I wasn't getting out of it, you know, and I didn't realize how much it was going to change me and what a blessing it actually has been. I've learned so much. I learned to get out of the way and let God speak and always ask for him to speak. And I've learned to be aware of when Shari's shown up and God has shown up. So it's been an honor and a blessing, and it's really bittersweet that I stand up here for my last week, and it's not goodbye, it's a see you later. Maybe next year I'll come back again, Sally.
That would be nice.
So last week we talked about step 11 and we talked about deepening my relationship with my Creator who saved me from a life of misery and from jails, institutions, or death. And what I do to facilitate that deeper relationship with God. And now that I've formed this deeper relationship with God, it's time to pass it on. And not only, you know, the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So one of those key words for me was we tried to carry this message, because I don't get anyone sober, I don't keep anyone sober, I'm not their financial advisor, I'm not their banker, I'm not their therapist, I'm not their friend. I am there to take them through the book, through the steps, so that they can have what was so freely given to me. And that's it. And it's that simple. And, you know, I have my sponsees when they sit down with the big book with me, and we take lots of notes in the book and highlight. And I tell them it's not even for you to know, it's for you to pass it on. You know, so that when you go to sit down with somebody and you start going through the book, you know exactly what to tell them. And, you know, this is just the way I learned. And this is just the way that God brought people in my life to teach me. And I've had quite a few sponsors. I think Dan is like my 6th sponsor in almost 10 years. And although he's been my sponsor for the last 4, so he's like majority rules at this point. He's like, you know, till the good Lord takes him home, he says he's not letting me leave him. You know, and that's another thing. Like, I always hear, like, oh, my sponsor fired me. You know, like, I don't fire, I don't hire. If I'm not doing your service and you're not hearing me, I welcome you to find somebody who can. That's just how it is for me. But sponsorship was so important for me because that was the number one thing that gave me purpose and a life beyond my wildest dreams. See, the 12th step for me is the joy of living. It brings me such joy to see the light come on in a newcomer's eyes, or in somebody's eyes who finally actually gets it and understands. You know, they get the reason why they drink. They get the reason why they act certain ways. And for me to see that, I remember the day the light came on in my eyes. And it was that aha moment of, holy cow, everything in my life makes sense now. You know, my mom's been coming every week, just about. Maybe she missed like 2 times, she was sick, but you know, I'm sober almost 10 years, and I think she finally, after hearing this step series, is understanding my alcoholism. And it took me breaking it down for her through this, because I could talk about it all I want to her, but she's not an alcoholic. So And she hasn't been through the things that I've been through. And I think she had an aha moment of like all the times in my life growing up and all the crazy things I did, it started to really make sense to her. And all the stuff that I talked about accounted for all the things I did. So it's just amazing. You know, I think I saw light come on in her eyes through this series. But anyhow, so, you know, when I started sponsoring, you know, nowhere in this book does it say you must sponsor. They do allude to it, though, a little bit. In a few places. Like, in the foreword to the second edition, they say, this seemed to prove that one alcoholic could affect another as no non-alcoholic could. It also indicated that strenuous work, one alcoholic with another, was vital. Vital meaning necessary to live, like vital signs, vital to permanent recovery. So when I first came around and I had my 6 years of sobriety, like, there was no working with anyone. It was me, myself, and I, self-will run riot. You know, gave up half of the first step, which admitted I was powerless over alcohol. Yeah, I didn't touch alcohol, but I act out in so many other ways, you know. And had I known all this, you know, I would have had a longer life beyond my wildest dreams. But the Lord really makes you go through whatever you have to go through to get to where you get. You know, I'm wearing this shirt tonight. I don't know if you guys could see it. It says, I made it here with love, right? And that's how I made it here. I made it here with love. I was loved into sobriety. I was loved by so many people in these rooms. Chokes me up to think about all the people that took a shot at me when I thought I was worthless and I was worth nothing. I couldn't believe these people would come up to me after the meeting and say, you have to get a sponsor and let me help you. And, you know, I never felt that kind of love before. They wanted nothing from me. I was like, you mean you're going to sit down with me once a week and go through this book and I don't have to pay you for, like, you want my insurance card? Like, what do, you know? I, like, couldn't believe it, you know, because I was never given anything away without getting anything back in return. I was so selfish that I couldn't believe that there were actually selfless people out there who were willing to see you recover and help you build a relationship with God. And it blew my mind and it made me stay because I wanted more. And I saw the light on in everybody else's eyes and I just wanted to stay. And I didn't want to sponsor at that point. You know, I was real early on in my recovery and I wasn't even thinking about that, but I was thinking about that. I just wanted to stop feeling so crappy about myself and feeling so alone. And they just kept telling me things like, you're never alone, and, you know, we want to help you and we're here for you. And one by one, God just kept putting more and more people in my life, more and more teachers, more and more spiritual guides, more and more work for me to do. And, you know, and that's how I made it here with love. I don't recognize that person anymore. Praise God, I don't. And I get to tell others now that hold on, pain ends, and that you don't walk this journey alone. You walk it together with many. And, you know, I was going to save this to the end, but I think I need to read this now. This is my daughter's college essay. And now that I'm on this subject of what we do for one another and how we carry the message. When she read this to me, I was like blown away. Now, my daughter was almost, she was a month before her 10th birthday when I came into these rooms. She's 19 and a half now, and she's in college. And when she was applying to all these, she applied to 13 colleges. I was like, really, you got to slow down with the fees, okay? Because it's like $100 every college you apply to. But she was like writing all these essays, and the essay tutor, and I couldn't understand. So she finally said to me, I want you to hear my essay that got me into my college that I'm going to. And I said, okay. And she sent this in to University of Wisconsin with her application. And she got in. Hi, my name is Shari. I am an alcoholic. As my mother stands before her community of support, I realize how much I, too, am a part of this community. I listen to her tell her story for the 1,000th time in my life and allow the words to wash over me as I survey the room. The community is divided in half, those who are there for help and those who are there to help. I'm a part of the latter. It is difficult to bare one's soul to a room full of strangers, yet I proudly watch my mother as she does just that. Her eyes look with mine, and I feel my energy spill into her, giving her the ability to continue on a journey that I understand to be a daily struggle. Despite the room's divide, though, we are all there for the same reason. We all want the best for the people within the room, and this is what makes this particular community so strong. A unified and well-spelled out goal with a common enemy allows for a closer-knit connection. And despite the anonymous portion of the group's name, we are no longer the strangers we all started off as. As my mother finishes speaking and the spattering of applause dies down, she walks back to her seat and I smile as people reach out to her in support. I take her hand and squeeze as she sits. Her smile and commitment to maintaining sobriety is all the thanks I need for being here with her each week. This community means the world to both of us. Plus they have free donuts. You know, when I read that, I realized, that's practicing these principles in all our affairs. That's bringing this, all my affairs. It's in my home. It's in my job. It's in Publix. It's in the bank. Honesty. Love, tolerance, forgiveness. I can't just be that way in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have to be that way everywhere so that I'm attractive. I'm attractive from the inside out. And I'm attractive in a meeting so that someone who's struggling, if they need help and they need a sponsor, and I raise my hand and I share, and they hear what I have to say, and my words align with God's word, that they're going to hear my message and say, I want what she has, I want her to sponsor me. I only have one recipe, right? And my recipe is whatever I was taught by the many teachers that Lord put in front of me. And I try to carry that as often as possible. You know, this is a family disease, and, you know, I never even realized how much AA affected my daughter and how much it did for her. And till I read this essay she wrote, and what a positive impact these rooms have had on her life, and how, you know, these steps can work for anybody, alcoholic, non-alcoholic. There's so many vices that humans have that, you know, in ways. I've seen many people who are non-alcoholic who are just mean, and they're not forgiving, and they're, you know, they're like a dry drunk. And I often say, if they only knew, you know. So, going back through this book, because this was so important for me to see, because I needed to realize that, you know, they say if you can't keep it unless you give it away. And it's so true, because anything I'm going through, I could be having the worst day of my life, and I will sit down with somebody or get a phone call from one of my sponsees or sit down with one of them and go through this book, and like, I forget all about my issues and my problems. You know, it's just, I start speaking solution. And then I'm like, oh, I should take my own advice, because I was just complaining about that problem 5 minutes ago. Doctor's opinion says, as part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. Must do likewise. So, Bill was like 6 months sober in the Oxford groups, a little bit of history, and he went out of town and for work, and he was trying to do a business deal, and he had about 6 months sober, and the business deal fell through, and he was walking in the lobby past the bar, and he heard the glasses clinking and the ice clinking, and he thought to himself it would be really nice to just have a drink. And then he remembered what his friend Ebby told him, that, if you don't give this thing away and you don't work with another alcoholic, you're not going to be able to stay sober. And so he, instead of going to the bar, he went to the payphone, and he picked up the payphone and he made a phone call, and he ended up at Dr. Bob's house, and so the story of AA began, right? And Bob stayed sober up until his death from that moment. And you think about that, like they say it right here even in the big book, how this whole thing started from one alcoholic to another at some guy's kitchen table, right? And he carried a message to Bill, and Bill got sober, and he had a spiritual awakening on that day once he went to Towns Hospital for the last time. And this thing has multiplied itself. When this big book was written, there were only 100 members of AA. I think we're up to like 4 million worldwide at this point. And that all started from one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic at a kitchen table. And my journey to God really started when I started sponsoring. My journey to God was when I found my purpose. I didn't need cellos anymore, or softball, or anything I was trying to be good at that I could never be good at, that I just wanted accolades for. And, they say, it's a selfish, it's a selfish program. So people say, right, like, I'm doing this so I could stay sober, right? But in turn, I'm helping you so that you can do the same, right? It's just a big cycle that just keeps going on and down the line. In working with others, it says life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish. I remember when my loneliness vanished. Being lonely sucks. I remember when I had no one. My family didn't want me. I had no friends. And I remember, I started going to the same meeting every day, 10 a.m., 10 a.m., 10 a.m., 10 a.m., and next thing you know, they're inviting me to breakfast. I'm like, I haven't been out to breakfast with other humans, and I can't tell you how long. I had no one, because I drove everyone away. And when I remember, the day I realized, that I wasn't lonely anymore. I wasn't lonely, and then I remember the day when I was I wish my phone would stop ringing, because my phone never rang, ever. And then I got a little time, and I started meeting people and taking phone numbers and actually calling them and getting phone numbers, and it was amazing to me. It got to the point where I had to shut the phone off, because my phone was just, people were calling me, checking on me. Imagine that. Seeing if I'm okay, seeing if they can help me. And that's what this thing is about, giving it away in one way or another and helping others and doing service. I look at sponsorship as service. It's my duty to serve you because God needs you to serve another. To watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you. To have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. There's 82 musts in this book. That's one of the most important musts. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. I can tell you Sunday nights for the last 12 weeks has been the bright spot of my life. I look forward to this every week. I'm super, super sad. I'm a little sick today. I wasn't feeling well, so I'm a little quiet, but I'm crying inside because I don't want to leave you guys, but I'll be back.
Awesome.
Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. Foundation stone, helping others. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be, in all your affairs. It may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interference with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. It may mean sharing your money and your home, counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to police courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums. Your telephone may jangle. This was definitely written in 1939. Your telephone may jangle at any time of the day or night. Your wife or husband may sometimes say they are neglected. I remember my daughter was like, okay, I'm happy you're sober, but this is taking up way too much of your time. Till now. To grow up. Your job now is to be at the place where you may be of maximum helpfulness to others. So never hesitate to go anywhere if you can be helpful. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth on such an errand. Keep on the firing line of life with these motives and God will keep you unharmed. I'm going to tell you a story. So I get a phone call, right? You know the where and whens, and when there's a newcomer in the room, you pass the where and when around, everybody puts their number, right? So this was probably 6 years ago. So I'm sitting home, minding my business. I get a phone call from a very drunk girl. Very drunk, like incoherently drunk. And she's going, help me, please. I got your number. And I'm like, okay, honey. I'm going to go to an 8:30 in the morning meeting. I'll come pick you up. I'm going to text me your address, and we're going to come pick you up. So she texts me her address. And then in the morning, because there was no talking to her while she was drunk. You can't approach a woman or a man when they're oblivious and obliterated, and they're never gonna even hear you. Half the time they're in a blackout, and you're just talking to the wind, right? So I get my girlfriend, who she wasn't in the program, but she's a director of a recovery center, and she's a therapist, head therapist, so she knew a lot about AA and 12 steps, and she ran a huge program there. And I said, you gotta come over. I have nobody to do a 12-step call with me. We gotta go pick this girl up and take her to a meeting, right? So we go, I drive to this house because she never called me. At 8:30, I text her, she didn't answer. I called her, she didn't answer. So I said, you know what, we're just gonna go there. She's gotta be sober by now, or at least she'll be hungover, but more coherent. Let's go see her. And we drove to Pompano, to the hood. And my girlfriend, who is not one of us, and yeah, she's probably driven through it, but she was scared. And we stood outside the door, and I said, okay, before we knock on this, it was like a crack house. It was pretty bad there where we were, you know. I mean, I've been to places like this, but she was freaking out. So I said, give me your hand. We're just going to pray. I said, Lord, please protect us, keep us safe, let there be no guns involved, and get us out alive and help us bring a message of hope. And I knock on the door, and this girl answers. She's so hungover, poor thing. My heart broke for her, and I said, can I come in? And she goes, can I help you? I said, well, you called me last night for help, and I was supposed to take you to an 8:30 meeting. I said, but you weren't answering your phone, and you weren't texting me back. She goes, oh no, I text you, look. And she texts some other girl, Shari, she didn't text the right person. And I I said, no, honey, that's not my number, but I'm here now. And she was sitting down, and I said, she had like a half a Corona on the counter. I said, is that your Corona? She goes, yeah. I go, you need a hair of the dog, go finish your Corona. You mind if I talk to you? And she was like, no, I don't mind. And I sat and I told her my story, and my girlfriend was like, I don't understand. Like, you didn't say anything to her about her drinking. And I was like, you don't understand. It's not about her drinking. It's my experience, strength, and hope that I carry a message of what I went through, what happened to me, what it was like, and what it's like now. That's experience, strength, and hope. You know, and that's carrying a message. And she's either going to hear me and want what I have, or she's just going to go on and take the psychopath. But my job is done here. She's got my number. Well, I think she's still sober today. That was like 6 years ago. I kind of lost touch with her. I sponsored her for a little while, but I, you know, all I have is my experience. That's all I have to share. I'm not here to tell you what to do, how to do it. I'm telling you how I did it to get me to where I am today. That's all I have, my recipe. You know, you bake a cake, you leave the flour out, it's not going to taste very good. So in order to have what I have, if you want what I have, then I have to tell you what I did. And that's all it is. If people complicate, you know, they always say it's a simple program for complicated people. Let me tell you, no truer words were ever said. And, you know, I could complicate the crap out of anything. You name it, I'm complicating it. Anything. And it's not that deep. In the end, it's deep because you're going to get a deep and personal relationship with God that you can pass on to someone else, but it's not that difficult to tell your story. You know? It's just not. I mean, at least for me. And, you know, I've taken people through the steps who haven't continued on to sponsor, and I pray for them every day, and they stop calling me because they don't want to sponsor, and it's all fear-based. Everything's fear, you know? And I always tell my sponsees when they're ready to start sponsoring, you sit down with someone, you start by telling them your story, you hear their story, and you go on from there. You have any questions, you pick up the phone and you call me. I can give you advice. I can give you the solution. If you're not sure, just say, let me ask my sponsor. I do it all the time. You know, I'm not the all-knowing one. He is. Sometimes I have to go to God. Sometimes I have to go to my sponsor. You know, and what a journey it's been to have this purpose and to have God remove loneliness from me and to have awareness of when I'm not practicing these principles in all my affairs. You know, when I was 6.5 years sobriety, Joe's favorite word, and I was in the rooms, but I was not in the rooms. I was on the outer edges of that poker chip. The rough outer edges. I wasn't in the smooth middle. I got arrested. Who gets arrested in AA? I got arrested for fighting with the Boca police. I had to spend like thousands of dollars on an attorney for obstructing justice because, you know, my boyfriend at the time, he was sobriety too, so he had an anger issue, and he's fighting with the cops, and the cops are beating him, and I'm like, thinking it's like a Rodney King episode and something bad's gonna happen, and I'm jumping on the police and screaming at them, and that's not sober behavior. That is not practicing these principles in all our affairs. And I got arrested. This was like in 1998. And, you know, I remember I had to do some community service for it because I got out of it, but I didn't get out of it. I don't even remember what they called it, but I did some community service. I washed the windows at the Girl Scouts, and that was like my community service. And, but I didn't realize like how much damage I did to myself because then I became a nurse, and even nolo contendere and misdemeanors and everything else, you got to report them to the State of Florida Nursing Board and explain yourself. And I had to do that a couple incidences that I was arrested. Because once I relapsed, I opened myself up to even more of a chance to be arrested. But, I found, though, that if I'm honest and truthful, and I tell them, and this was a very long time ago, and there's a lot of sober time in between, then, God just works it out for you somehow. He always does. Nobody's ever said a word to me in all these years, thank God, but, but that's not sober behavior, and that's not something that somebody's going to want to have from me. So if I'm running around in these rooms, and I'm acting that way, and I'm not having sober behavior, like the TJ Maxx story, I just love that story, I love to go back to that story. When I'm doing those things, I don't look very good. And I'm not representing AA very good. How am I representing AA? The organization that gave me God and a life beyond my wildest dreams. How am I acting? And it's so important for me to remember that. And there are times, believe me, there are times when I am less than perfect, way less than perfect. And there are times when I will make a scene or, get upset, but it's the awareness piece. Because it's painful when that happens to me. It's painful and I don't want to feel that again. It doesn't feel good to do things opposite the way that God wants us to be. That no longer feels good anymore. That's that God uttering truth feeling I get. So, I need to carry myself in AA and outside of AA in a godly manner so that I'm representing AA the right way. We get enough of a stigma for our disease that people don't recognize as a disease or and then they catch one wind of that and they're like, oh, yeah, that's how they act, So I have to represent AA for what it is and practice these principles in all my affairs. And when I practice these principles in all my affairs, I give somebody something that they can look at and say, wow, I want to feel that way too. But I learned that I don't walk this journey alone. I put one hand in God's and one hand in my fellows, and we walk it together because we cannot do this alone. That's why alcoholics need Alcoholics Anonymous. I love my church. I was there last night. I saw a bunch of you. I saw Vanessa and Joe there. And church is beautiful, and that's my little extra to make me a little in a deeper relationship with God and Jesus. But the truth is, I need Alcoholics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous needs me. Because I need to be standing by the door. I need to be standing by the door. The most important service position in this entire organization is the greeter. It's not the sponsoring. It's not the chair. I remember walking up to my first AA meeting and somebody was at the door and said, welcome. You're not alone anymore. And you don't ever have to feel this way again. Come on in and have a seat. Welcome home. If there was nobody at the door to greet me, I may not have walked in. I would have never heard those words. I may have been too scared. I don't know. I know I was pretty desperate. Welcome home. But it's not enough to just sit in those rooms and read the steps on the walls. You have to do the work so that you can have a life beyond your wildest dreams, so so you could pass it on to others to have a life beyond their wildest dreams. And I'm going to tell you, nobody is too down or too broke or too sick to get a life beyond their wildest dreams. Nobody. I've sat with the most hopeless of hopeless people who have said, there's no way I'm coming back from this. And I look at them today and I'm like, look at you now. Remember when? I was that hopeless person. You know, in 2011, I begged my father to help me buy a house. And my dad had some money, and I said to him, I'm never getting married. Just take whatever money you would have used and help me put a down payment on a house. I said, nobody wants to marry me. Nobody wants to marry me. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy of love. But my daughter needs a stable roof over her head, so help me buy a house. And it was a little condo, and I didn't care how small, I didn't care what it was. I just wanted a stable environment. And so he did, and then, you know, and then I got sober. I found a husband. A boyfriend who turned into a fiance, who turned into a husband, and I remember calling my dad going, I'm getting married, you want to help? He was like, nope, you got the house. Remember when you were hopeless and lonely and unlovable? Figure it out. So I sold the house and married the man. God does that. Freedom, the purpose. Welcome home.